Hello and welcome to another episode of Try Nunes is an Absolute live stream. We've got Dancing Christian in the background and Andy just hanging out. With you as always, Steve Haller here. How we doing, guys?
I've been watching the 1 hour Dancing Zemo nonstop, so
Yes.
this is the official dance now of NunesMagician.
There we go.
The 1 hour Dancing
Absolutely.
Zemo clip was not something I expected to exist in my life, and I was somebody who knew that was coming ahead of time due to my previous employment. Had no idea that was what's going to happen, and I think everybody's lives are better because of it, but I don't really know if this is what Daniel Bruhl wants to be remembered by for the rest of his life. An insanely talented actor will get more hits on that 1 hour long dancing video than pretty much everything else he creates for the rest of his career.
And this is what is known as this is what is known as the internet.
Yep. Gotta love it.
So I was going to say, speaking of the internet, we are a Syracuse blog that exists on the internet that does a talk show on the internet every Sunday night here at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you might be wondering, it's like April. There's no Syracuse sports going on. And we would tell you, wrong. There was lots of Syracuse news this week. For the next hour, we're going to dive into it. And we're going to start off with lacrosse. Christian, as our resident lacrosser, I saw it was a sweep. Men won.
We'll go with it.
Women won. But there was a lot of news with the men's side. So let's start with the game, and then let's go into the news. They beat Albany 13-8, and as somebody who is still scarred by the Thompson trio defeating Syracuse in the Carrier Dome back at Albany, I'm assuming Albany's a good team but not a great team anymore.
Yes, I remember you're talking to someone who is also scarred by 2018 Albany that went to the championship game against Yale, and that I believe that was the same team, and that team had Connor Fields and Tehoka Nanticoke, which was scarily awful. Remember that game in 2018 ended 18-3 in favor of Albany, so very similar to a Thompson level battering, which is again brings up scarring memories of Syracuse in the mid 2010s.
Well, and Albany still has a net. Oh wait, never mind.
Nope. Yeah, that was a good thing for Syracuse. If Albany still had Tehoka Nanticoke, this actually could have gotten a lot scarier, and it's because a persistent issue actually turned up for the Syracuse offense, and it was turnovers. It was just lazy passing. Sometimes too hard passing. Like you have to try to find that happy medium in lacrosse, because if your pass is too soft and it will get intercepted, or if it's too hard, the guy that you're trying to get the ball to just can't catch the ball in his stick, because it's really hard to catch a lacrosse ball in a stick.
Can confirm.
Yeah, I mean, ask anyone who's tried lacrosse in high school gym class. I mean, it's pretty hard to just play catch with a lacrosse ball. So passing has to get cleaned up for the Syracuse offense, because it just kind of looked a little bit lackadaisical and lazy at times, and then at other times too ambitious. But when you're talking about this Syracuse men's lacrosse team, you're always wondering about the face-offs. It was better. It was better from Syracuse, 15 of 25. So again, over that 50% barrier that you want to see. Not by much, but I mean, at this point, you'll take it from after the unit as a whole just was awful in the last two losses against Duke and against Notre Dame. Now, granted, most of the face-off guys of Duke and Notre Dame did make Inside Lacrosse's mid-season All-American list. So, like,
I was actually, that was going to be my question, was like, how good is Albany at the X? Like, were we better than them because of skill, or just shit happenstance?
So the Duke and Notre Dame one, you could probably understand, like, you might lose at the X. But yeah, Albany not as good, you would say, and the one thing that, if you saw our preview piece with me and John Arsenaco on the website on the morning of the game, we talked about the face-off, and we talked about what Syracuse could do in order to get better at the face-off, and we brought up the wing play a lot. We brought up that Syracuse should be using their wings, and you saw Peter Durth and Brett Kennedy get more involved in scooping up the ground balls to secure the possession, because Syracuse's face-off guys just aren't that good at winning the balls to themselves on the face-off, which what Duke's and Notre Dame's face-off guys are really good at doing. Dearth 3 ground balls, Kennedy 4 ground balls. That's kind of what you want to start seeing with those guys getting involved more in the face-off. So it's a start. Albany's goalkeeper also had a great game, 14 saves for Liam Donnelly on 27 shots on goal. So, like, that's still pretty good, over 50%. Some of the shots were not great from Syracuse also, but that just might be to the offense just not really getting a lot of opportunities from the past week. So you're hoping to see that get cleaned up, and the defense had some miscommunication, especially early in the game, but then cleaned it up as the game got on. So there was a good improvement there. So all of that's good. It's a tune-up game, and and unfortunately for Syracuse, it's the last easy game on the schedule. Now with, as Andy alluded to, the news of the week that the Utah game that Syracuse was supposed to end the season with is now canceled.
Yeah.
So
the last of the games that were considered a probable win on the schedule instead of a coin flip.
Mm-hmm.
And why, Christian, is it so important that we talk about the implications of this Utah game dropping off the schedule? Not just from would have been nice to end the season at home in the Dome with a somewhat easier game that you win and get good vibes for. I did not know this, but thanks to a conversation that you and John Arsenio, I do not know how to pronounce his last name, so I apologize very much, John. But Lacrosse John, you and him had a great conversation in Slack kind of explaining why this game getting canceled and Syracuse's previous performances make these next 3 games arguably the most important of Syracuse's season. Why is that?
Let's put it into context first. Syracuse right now has played 8 games this season, and they are 5-3 this season. So an okay record, 5-3. Now with the loss of the Utah game, though, Syracuse has 3 games left on the schedule. And in order to qualify for the NCAA tournament, unless the rules have changed because of the COVID pandemic, which they did for the women's lacrosse and for women's basketball, you have to have a 500 record or better in lacrosse. I'm not sure if those rules have changed for men's lacrosse. I'm assuming they haven't, because men's lacrosse is just that more competitive and has less teams. So you're going to get better teams to judge yourself against. And the unfortunate thing for Syracuse is that the rest of their team is the ACC. And Steve, I'm glad you used the term coin flip, because really now in the ACC, after this last weekend of games, it is literally a coin flip to in the ACC, just who wins these games. Let's take a look at what happened last week in the ACC. So Syracuse plays North Carolina next, who took Duke the distance and lost in overtime in that fantastic 1-2 matchup last week. They just lost to Virginia, 18-16.
I think we play them too.
And we play Virginia after North Carolina.
Oh.
And
who's after that?
Notre Dame, who
number 4 in the country.
Yeah.
Got it.
No, Virginia's 4 in the country. That will change. Notre Dame is 5 in the country. That will change. But Dame this week beat Duke, who was 1. Already beat UNC and Cuse by 1 goal, but was still considered to be the number 1 team in the country. North Carolina is 3.
Yeah.
North Carolina was ranked 3, having only dropped 1 spot in the ranking after losing by 1 goal to Duke, and then lost by 2 to UVA, who was considered to be free-falling after losing to Cuse and to UNC big earlier this season. So right now, like Steve said, it is a literal coin flip in the ACC right now.
Yeah, so Syracuse has 3, 4, 5, and what you're saying is that there's a really good chance that that cumulative or that average of those 3 teams' rankings might actually get better, in the span of next week.
Yeah, North Carolina will probably drop, Virginia will go up, and Notre Dame will go up, but North Carolina is not going to drop by much.
This is
Godspeed, folks.
Yeah, I was going to say the men's lacrosse program has really, we talk about Syracusing all the time for men's basketball and for football. Men's lacrosse is turning it into an art form with the way that the pandemic has altered their postseason chances, their schedules over these last like 18 to 24 months. Like they went from potential national champions to your Christian. What you were saying is that there is like a 25% chance that they just missed the tournament because their schedule was too tough.
Yeah, and not only that, right now they're the lowest ranked team in the ACC, and it's tough to say that. It's so tough to say that considering when every team in the ACC has been in the top 10 throughout the entire ranking process and throughout the entire polls. The ACC, no ACC team has dropped out of the top 10 this year in men's lacrosse. Like that like I challenge you to find me another sport that can say that.
Men's soccer a couple years
Yes,
ago.
that is true. I do remember that. Wow, I do remember that. That was scary.
There was a stretch where 1 through 6 was 5 ACC teams in Maryland, I believe.
Hey, funny,
like,
men's
okay.
lacrosse, that is also the same thing, where the dominant teams are the 5 ACC teams and Maryland.
Yeah.
So
Maryland is the sole reason why the Big Ten may only get 1 or 2 teams in the NCAA tournament, because they are just destroying everyone.
You know what? I feel no sympathy for the Big Ten. They took Maryland, and they can reap the whatever they sow from having Maryland as your associated team. On a more positive side, I guess we can call it positive. The women won. They rebounded pretty well. It was another solid effort, and it kind of like, I don't want to call a women's lacrosse game boring, but we're kind of at the point where we know what the women's lacrosse team are. They're probably the second best team in the country. It's just that the first best team in the country very handily showed that they are better than Syracuse at this point in time.
And not just better than Syracuse, better than literally anybody. Like just flat out, like no one's going to touch UNC this year, and it's kind of scary. What was also scary,
right? Outside of them catching a fluke in the tournament, there's nothing that's stopping that.
What was also scary for the women's lacrosse team, though, is that the trend of starting slow came up once again, because Syracuse was down 7-4 heading into halftime.
Wow, did not realize that little nugget. Now, it's against the number 6 team in the country, so at least it's against a quality opponent. However, once you get past the top couple, if we're going to be running with North Carolina, then being down 7-4 to Virginia is not your ideal place to be.
Yeah, also not ideal is Asa Goldstock only making 4 saves. That's not ideal. Like, again, we talked a lot about how good Goldstock was at the beginning of the year, but ever since that UNC game, I mean, the only other game since that UNC game was this Virginia game, but like she hasn't looked like the same goalkeeper.
Right. And that's, I mean, that's going from superhuman to looking human, so that's definitely a change, but still. You know, it would be good. I haven't watched recent games, so it's like, is it a matter of the defense like hanging her out to dry, or is it just she's not making the saves, or do we really know what the situation is there?
I'll say I didn't watch the UVA game, but in the UNC game, it was the defense like losing track of UNC cutters, which they're really good at. Because UNC has playmakers with the lacrosse stick, where UNC could literally thread almost any pass and place it right in the middle of Syracuse's zone defense to make almost any shot unstoppable for Goldstock. I'm not sure what the shots looked like against Virginia, but I think we can all agree that Virginia doesn't have the same offense that UNC does. So making only 4 saves against the Cavaliers is not exactly what you want to see from a goalie who was so good to start the season.
It's like one of these situations where Steve, you put it perfectly, like barring a fluke, it feels like we are marching towards a Cuse UNC final, and that's great. It's just that, man, there's clearly another level that they'd have to get to if UNC does not have a fluky day.
Yeah, and I'm sure Northwestern will want to have
Yeah.
a word here or there, but they always seem to with women's lacrosse. I don't. It's like the most random team to be good at anything because it's Northwestern. But I'm also a Stumpy, so I can't say anything about the journalism school rivalry or anything.
There's a lot of those teams in just various sports where that team was just like randomly good at that one sport and then really crap at everything else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's even weirder in like hockey where you get all the D3 teams that have D1 hockey.
What was the school that made it to the championship against UMass? Was it St. Cloud this week?
Yeah, Minneapolis St. Cloud.
Yeah.
Union won the D1 hockey championship in 2015. Like, we're a tiny liberal arts school in Schenectady with 2,000 undergrads.
But we're really good at shooting a puck into a net.
They were really horrible when I was there. It was funny because it was always the rivalry between the hockey guys and the football guys because they were D1 and they were like, yeah, we're D1 athletes, blah blah blah, and we're like, yeah, but we actually win games.
Oh,
because they were really not.
It's
good.
like TCU with baseball. TCU usually has a pretty good baseball program, and then it's just not that great at almost everything else in the Big 12.
Yeah, Gary Patterson would like to have a word, and the answer and our response to that is, I actually don't know if he's still there. But two, man, I remember the one season that TCU was everything, and then they just fell off a cliff so fast.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
a great peak. That was.
And Jamie Dixon's still cashing a paycheck.
So. Oh, I forgot that he's there. This is a great transition.
He did forget how to coach against the zone, so that's good.
Yes, he is added to the list of guys who just randomly forget how to coach against the zone, which means that we are now going to talk some basketball before we get to our ad break. Basketball news this week continues to revive around the transfer portal, and Christian is our Doctor Strange of portal news, just popping in and out with a new, either taking away somebody or popping in with somebody new.
And can I add that all of these news pieces for men's basketball always happens on Monday and Tuesday? Like, it feels weird.
Like
it feels really weird to to write about them and then just not talk about it for like 5 days.
Yeah. Well, that was when I was going through for like putting the show notes together. I was like, oh, that happened this week. Oh, okay.
So do we want to start with the good O's or the bad O's?
Let's start with the bad. We're Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean we're team sad vegetables, right?
Yeah, we are.
That's a great phrase.
We've established
we
this.
Are team sad vegetables. That should be the show title. Like, change it right now.
Well, let's start with the less sad vegetable, which is Woody Newton. Thank you for your time. He was probably the one player that everybody went to at the beginning of this and said, oh yeah, he's definitely transferring. And he is the latest person to announce that he is entering the transfer portal, which, again, not a surprise, but definitely hurting Syracuse's depth. We saw him literally hit a 3 in the NCAA tournament. I'm pretty sure that was the peak of his season here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, the peak of his season was that 4-game stretch with Niagara, Rider, Rutgers, and Boston College, where he actually got decent playing time, just around 15 minutes per game in those games, and he actually averaged 7.5 points on 55% shooting. Like, cause that was good, and remember, Newton was going to be that Braswell guy that was coming off the bench for Syracuse, and then I'm not sure if this was confirmed or not, but he might have been one of the guys that did get COVID during the Buffalo break.
Yeah,
I don't remember if that was confirmed or not, but he definitely fell out of favor of the rotation after Syracuse came back from the Buffalo break. So I bet after he just fell out of the rotation, then the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
Right, and he's one of those guys where in the spurts we saw him, he looked like an athletic, just absolutely athletic freak, like could put the ball on the floor when he needed to. Not amazingly well, but just in general looked like a lot of high upside type, develop this raw talent that's just going to jump out of the gym and bye, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it just wasn't a fit, and we've seen that happen more and more. And oftentimes, these players that aren't a fit typically take a couple of years to figure it out. But in this year, with the transfer portal being what it is, everyone's going to take advantage of it, and they're gonna bounce real quick. So Woody was originally from the Maryland area, but Maryland did not offer him, nor did very many schools in that space. Oh wait, I lied. Maryland was actually way back in his offer sheet because I pulled up his 24/7 timeline. He had a lot of Power Five offers, and did get some look from the Big East. He was originally offered Kansas State was his first offer. Then Xavier jumped in with Maryland, Virginia Tech, Penn State, West Virginia, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Arkansas before Syracuse offered, and he committed to Syracuse. So I don't know if any of those schools are really in play for him. Maybe St. Louis. We've seen, the Syracuse transfers to the Big East, which we will get to in a second. And I can't really say if he's a candidate to like go to another Power Five school, or if he's a candidate to like drop down into a mid major, because we saw so little of him, and it wasn't as if he was a hyper athletic 4 or 5 star kid coming out. He was, a really solid 3 star that fit Syracuse because he's long and lanky. And I'm not sure what other schools are just going to take him because he was good enough for Syracuse, and what other schools are going to kind of look at him and say he was already pretty raw to begin with. We're going to need to make an investment in him. And I don't know if, we have the time or he's willing to do that for us. So, yeah. It's a lot of speculation there. The other person that we have to say goodbye to, Steve. He didn't answer the transfer portal, but he is moving on to different, probably better pizza.
He's taking his talents to South Slovakia.
I would assume so.
Didn't he say that Slovakian pizza just wasn't the same compared to American pizza?
I mean, I can't imagine even pizza in someplace not the tri-state area is not the same as American pizza.
That's very true. I enjoyed many a junior slice.
It is really sad that our favorite pizza eating point forward center fill in Marek Dolezaj is ending his Syracuse career. The senior had the ability to take a year at Syracuse that would not count against the scholarship limit, and he has opted instead to go play professionally, which was probably his plan from the beginning. He put out a wonderful thank you note on Instagram that the Syracuse basketball account posted. But in general, I don't think that we're surprised by this move. I do think that there was this hope that maybe he comes back and gives the lineup a lot more flexibility and experience than what we're counting on at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I had a whole eulogy prepared, and it was like, it's not the time. I'm pretty sure Doley is going to go down as one of those guys that anyone who watched Syracuse basketball during this era, has this weird appreciation for. Me more than most, as we know on the show. However, Marek really, he tied what pieces of the ragtag team that we were able to put together, tied them all into some cohesive, functional team that somehow finished in the top 25.
Yeah.
So, okay. It's gonna be a weird lineup on the floor without the flexibility of someone like Dolezaj opening the floor for other people. So I guess farewell, my European friend, and all the pizza to you.
Side note, why did I say juniors? I meant Joe's. Juniors is Broadway.
Yeah, there you go.
I was gonna say there's just so many pizza places. They're all fantastic in Syracuse and out. But I think, Christian, something that we kind of have talked about, we've alluded to a couple of times, is that we're still waiting on news for Alan Griffin. we're assuming that he's returning, but that's an assumption, not confirmed. We know Quincy is testing the waters. Like, it feels like with Marek not coming back, your front court all of a sudden is looking a lot shakier if the only returning piece is Jesse Edwards. Now, that's not to say that like Syracuse is not going to find a Boeheim-sized replacement, but it does seem as if, at least on day one of the season next year, the front court is probably not going to be as experienced or expected to be as good as front court.
Well, shaky is a good term to. Because also, what happened this week was Baramo Sidibe is going to return as well, and so the
completely forgot about that.
The front court might rest on his shaky knees, because God knows how those are feeling after tendonitis and a torn meniscus. That just sounds like an awful time to have surgery for both of those things. But he's back.
Just get it all done. Clean it all up in there. We're good.
But he's back. So, yay. But, like, we're still waiting for Barama to make that jump, I think, because we saw it towards the end of the 2019 season. But, like, you really wanted to see him carry it over in the 2020-2021 season. And obviously he got hurt and then didn't show it off because he couldn't. So...
Now, that said, if he comes back, whether it's as a backup to Edwards because Edwards made the jump, or in the starting role with Edwards backing him up, I do feel much better about the five with, true fives playing there. It definitely changes the game compared to what we saw this year, but you also have size in the middle that, as we saw towards the end of the season when Edwards was kind of making a name for himself, that really can be a difference maker to have a 7-footer that can play.
And then that really also, as I've talked a lot on this show the past couple of weeks, is finding that right balance in the lineup, because now you have the more offensive focused backcourt, and then if whoever is starting for Syracuse at the start of the season at front court on the wings, if that's shored up, then you would think you'd have a good defensive front court that could theoretically, offset the defense of the backcourt, theoretically at least. But again, that assumes that the people who are going to play on the wings don't have Alan Griffin's defense.
Right, and we kind of touched on Griffin and the wings, but right now Q is a big question mark. Like, it's assumed that he's testing the waters and will come back, but you never know. Dumber things have happened. We've seen people bolt that we didn't think were going to bolt, like Jeremy Grant, who ended up making a hell of a name for himself and is averaging 22 points a game in Detroit this year. So I think he made the right choice. However, there's always that question mark. So you assume he's back, and you assume Griffin is a big question mark. So what do we do? I mean, does Cole slot in there somewhere? Does James Arthur Boeheim Jr. slot in there somewhere?
Steve, you said the quiet part out loud.
I'm going to, because it's the
worst kept secret.
It's the worst kept secret. Yeah, when he has something on his Instagram that's "my decision's coming soon" with a shot of him in the dome, like, be subtle about it, buddy. No, not buddy. Buddy's brother. Sorry.
Yeah, buddy, stop buddy, stop posting on my Instagram.
He's not he's your pal.
Yeah, what if that was an elaborate family prank?
Yeah, imagine
Buddy actually
imagine Buddy and Jamie, raided his room or something and, figured out how to, his passwords on his phone and something like that.
I mean, really, we're going to find out that Jamie Boeheim is the one behind all of this, and she's just screwing around with both of her brothers, because that would track on so many family dynamic levels.
Yeah.
And she'll find some way to transfer into Syracuse.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Q needs some bodies, too.
Yeah. As
Oh,
the
God.
elder behind Jim said, like she is the one reminding everyone that she's the one who has a state title. So I mean that counts for something in the Beheim household.
Literally, she has as many rings as her dad does, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something. Okay, those are all the people who left. Steve mentioned Cole, who's somebody who came in, but before we get to that good news, before we get to the good stuff, I want to mention the last piece of news, and then we'll do our sponsor.
Oh wait, we're
We're
going.
going. Well,
News?
I want to say happy trails to Kaderi, and please do not play Seton Hall this year. Just do not schedule Seton Hall. Do not play any tournament in MSG where Seton Hall is involved in the field.
We are playing in Battle for Atlantis, so and Seton Hall's not in that group. So I mean, unless Syracuse goes to the Jimmy V Classic in MSG, you're probably good. But then Syracuse will inevitably put UConn in there again. So
right.
Although UConn's going to the Battle for Atlantis also, so that's probably going to be Seton Hall.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna have an MSG game next year, and it's gonna be against one of the old Big East teams. Probably not
St. John's.
Yep.
St. John's is the other option, but man, Seton Hall would just James Zuba, former Seton Hall booster James Zuba is gonna be wearing the split Kaderi Richmond jersey, half Seton Hall, half Syracuse. But congrats to Kaderi. I'm glad that he found a landing spot closer to home. He's probably going to be really good for them, and this one is going to hurt. But
and for Seton Hall, he probably will turn out better than the last Syracuse transfer that went to Seton Hall.
This is accurate.
True. You know what else happened this week? Kamari lands in Syracuse.
Let's go positive.
So for anyone who missed
Sean's tweet on that was just so good. If you guys didn't, Sean Keeley's tweet was simply 1 if by Lands, 2 if by Sidibe, in reference to the revolutionaries warning that the British are coming.
Yep.
And both
because that dropped about the same. I think those both dropped on the same day or close to it. So it was as always, solid work by Sean. So for anyone who missed or was living in a bubble on Tuesday, Kamari Lands, 5-star recruit, has committed to Syracuse for the class of 2022. So now he's the second recruit for 2022 to be committed.
First or second, first maybe.
Right. I think we'll give him first for the second time. He's the second first recruit.
Yes.
So no longer have Dior Johnson coming, but we have started to solidify the class of 2022. So that's another nice feather in the cap of the James Arthur Boeheim coaching staff.
Yeah, if you're wondering what type of player Kamari Lands is, he is a 6'8", 195 pounds small forward. So he's basically the exact same body type that our boy Woody Newton was coming out of high school. So very similar type build. The difference is that Lands is ranked significantly higher. He's one of the top 50 kids in the country. He's a top 10 small forward, as you could probably imagine by being a top 10 kid in the country. But his offer list is definitely a little bit smaller than one would expect. His hometown is Indianapolis, but he is transferred he's at a prep school right now, and his offers were DePaul, Miami, Texas Tech, and Xavier. Texas Tech being the really big one there, who of course lost their head coach to the University of Texas this week. Not necessarily saying the two things are correlated, but I do think that when the only other Power 5 school loses their head coach, it probably did not hurt. But he is, for those who want to get overly excited over a kid who won't show up to campus until 2022, he has said that a player that he likes to model his game off of and a guy that he looks up to is Malachi Richardson. And I feel like that's a pretty apt description, where we really want him to be a 3 who can do a lot of scoring versus a traditional 4 who's a little bit more defensive oriented or uses his size to just beat down people. He's going to have a little bit more finesse to his game, and he's going to be a lot more athletic than your typical 3.
And to
I thought you were going to mention how old that makes us all feel.
Yeah, well, it makes me feel old, man. And so I'm just going to leave it at that.
And he did mention to 24/7 that he likes the big guard mentality that Syracuse has, and 24/7 does list him as a combo guard. So who knows? Maybe there's a world where he plays the two, or maybe becomes Michael Banijay.
6'8" athlete at the 2. I'm in.
Or he becomes Michael Banijay, because wasn't Michael Banijay like 6'7", 6'8"?
Michael Banijay came in
like
as a small forward who couldn't cut it at Duke, and then turned into, I would argue, okay, Tyler Ennis exists, but probably one of the best guards that we've had at Syracuse in the turn of the post 2010s. Like
I was going to say Deion Waiters, Michael Carter Williams,
right.
Tyus Battle all want to have a word with you, but
yeah,
he's right there. He's right there. He's in the conversation.
It is the point guard history at Syracuse prior to this most recent run. It was just phenomenal of guys who all went to the NBA, all went pro. But Benajay was somebody who I really liked because of that size, because of that mismatch. And this is something that Steve has just fought Jim Boeheim on Twitter, because Jim Boeheim's not on Twitter, so we just tweet about it and hope that he gets the printouts at some point in time. I really want to start seeing some positionless NBA type mentality, because the zone allows you to not necessarily need to have positions. There's not like, you don't need to match up players based off of a size or based off of agility or whatnot, when you just got to put them in one of 5 spots on the zone. And
right, you can run back to wherever the hell you want to be on defense.
And we've seen. I mean, Boeheim has said he doesn't want to do this, but we have seen Buddy drop back to play a wing spot from time to time.
Yes.
So like, we know that's a possibility.
Like, imagine.
Yeah, that was dead nuts in the dearth of the Alan Griffin defense experiment.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations though where you imagine, say, we have this like 6'8" super lanky kid, and why not have a whole team of 6'8" super lanky kids and turn them into a crazy zone? If this one wants to play guard, great, go out and recruit one who wants to play the 3 and wants to play the 4, and all of a sudden the zone becomes that much more terrifying. It just becomes a question of how comfortable is this coaching staff, read Jim Boeheim, with a traditional 3 making that move into a 1 or into a 2, which again we've seen happen exactly once in the James Arthur Boeheim experience.
Now, so we have a commit. You're talking about comfort. I would say there's one thing we need to mention when it comes to comfort.
Oh, Steve, just say the quiet part out loud.
Home field athletics. Or apparel. Jesus, I can't even get our ad reads right. Here we go.
Home field apparel. They make the comfiest t-shirts, comfiest sweaters. This weekend, my wife stole one of my home field sweaters and said, "Oh wow, this is really comfortable. I'm going to wear this a lot." Or just buy me one. Like, that's pretty much their motto, and that's pretty much their selling point for everything. I am wearing their newest Syracuse design. It is a old school block S with basketball on it, because we're a basketball school and we made a Sweet 16 run. If you are not a Syracuse fan, they just released their newest school, Oklahoma State, and they have some amazing Pistol Pete designs on there. I am not somebody who knows a Pete, but if I did know somebody named Pete, I would buy him one of these shirts, because they're great. And it's just I feel like everybody named Pete who plays sports got the nickname Pistol for some reason. I don't know if that like has anything to do with their athletic abilities, but they're Pistol Pete. Yeah. Home field apparel. They're great.
Yeah, I want to petition Connor now to I found some of the old Union logos, and I'm gonna now start petitioning him to branch into D3 and just go whole hog, because I would 100% crank some designs out for old classic Union Athletics logos.
I was gonna say, you just said D1 hockey. They released a new UMass hoodie in recognition of their they won something in hockey. So
they beat St. Cloud in the championship.
There we go. Home field magic, just doing it all the way. Baylor wins the basketball championship. The And then, UMass. I don't know if Stanford or has a home field deal or not, so we're just not going to talk about them. But congratulations to the Stanford team. If you would like to add some home field to your collection and add some ridiculous cozy tees, we have a promo code Nunes10 for 10% off your entire order. NUNES 10. Get 10% off. It's really simple. Go check it out. Go check them out. Thank you again, Home Field, for sponsoring us. We really appreciate it. And again, Connor, this is an evil marketing Ponzi scheme you have where you pay us money to promote your clothing and then we spend that money on your clothing. You are evil genius, Mr.
Oh, he knows what he's
Yeah,
doing.
100%.
I mean, as long as he can take the Tom Green jokes, I mean, that's what we're here for.
Still, my most popular tweet of 2021 is the Tom Crean face. Just hang it in the Louvre. Yeah, man, love those. Speaking of fun basketball things, there was another player who came in literally the day after we posted, the same day actually, we posted our last week's live cast. We got a transfer from Villanova whose name is Cole. I don't remember his last name because it's not Swindell.
No, we talked about him
did
on the
talk
cast.
about
We talked him before Batty McBatson took me off the air.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah. So if anyone didn't know, last week when I bolted, there was a bat in my basement, so it caused me to have to leave the cast. Thankfully, my two co-hosts were gracious enough to continue on. But yeah, we ended up touching on Cole
or something of that sort.
yeah. Yeah, I just come on and that's instead of my face on the thing, it's just a bat symbol in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's J.K. Simmons in the Justice League looking at the skylight.
God, that's great.
I really, for whatever reason, I thought that he announced on Monday, but I guess he's already in. So then,
yeah. But
oh,
at the same time, it was announced that Howard guard Jayla Thornton is coming into the SU women's team.
Yes, which is, I think Christian was the one who found it out. She's like the all-time three-point shooter for the MAC.
MEAC all-time leading three-point shooter, 275 career three-pointers made. And if you know anything about Coach Q on Syracuse, that is a typical Coach Q player for Syracuse.
Yeah, stereotypical.
I tweeted out at one point during the season. I think it was during one game. Mike Curtis from Syracuse.com tweeted out that Syracuse at one point during a game was on pace for 43 pointers during a game, and I immediately replied to him saying that is about 28 too few.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I will never forget Brianna Butler, a great Syracuse player who came in very highly recruited and had some moments where she struggled. And Q did the anti-Jim Boeheim and just let her play and let her work through a lot of those things. And there was one game where I dressed up as a giant orange for the game, and I bugged my friend Sean Farrell, former NunesMagician beat writer who was on press row, and I was just screwing around with him during the game. And so afterwards, I said, "Okay, I'll wait for you out by the press room after you do your stuff, and then we'll go get lunch." And he comes out and he goes, "You should go on YouTube." Because Q and I got into it at our press conference, and lo and behold, Q goes to him, and Brianna had attempted, I think, 18 3-pointers and made 2 of them in this game. And so Sean asked the question, should she be shooting this many threes? And Q's answer was, I wanted her to shoot 5 more. And then
yes.
And that is the right answer.
If you know anything about
that is the Q answer.
Like, shooting threes is more synonymous with Q than good bow ties.
Yeah. Or amazing masks. I'm kind of jealous of his mask game.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that is, I'm happy that Q, again, Sarah had the article a few weeks ago that was everything's going to be all right. It seems like they kind of have their targets and they're going after their targets. And speaking of Syracuse targets, this is the part where we turn it over to Steve. We're going to talk some hogs on the line. Syracuse got a relatively big name transfer in that he is a former Texas offensive lineman. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit, I don't know 100% about this kid and how he ended up at Syracuse. I'm going to throw that to Steve, who wrote the article about all this stuff.
Okay. Well, Willie Tyler. Let me stretch out a little here.
Yeah.
All right. So, It's a weird one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's from Texas. No, he hasn't played a snap in 2 years. Uh, the only time he's ever played offensive line was as a JUCO, which was his second JUCO. So to back it up, and mind you, I think this is a very good get, and it seems like him and Schmidt have a good relationship, and he is a huge ass body and moldable. I can't remember. I didn't. I took notes on watching his film that I was going to do for something else, but I didn't write down how big he was. But he's a mammoth of a man.
6'7", 335 pounds.
Oh my!
I believe that qualifies.
Gosh.
So yeah, he's a big boy. He originally played at Gulf Coast Community College. Didn't play. Transferred to Iowa Western Community College. This is all as a D tackle. At Iowa Western, he converted to offensive line. Was playing left tackle for Iowa Western, which is funny because Bradford, who just came in, is from Iowa Central, so we're just getting all of the Iowa Community College linemen.
Take that, Iowa State.
It's like when Syracuse in basketball and in football just play all of the location Michigan teams.
Right, yeah, all the directional Michigans. Yep. So yeah, Tyler then transferred, I think it was, he had Texas and maybe West Virginia looking at him, coming out of Iowa Western. He ended up going to Texas. He was on there too deep in the spring, opted out of the 2020 season because of COVID. Again, he's raw. He does have a year in a Power 5 program that hopefully started to shape some of that. If you watch his Iowa Western film, he's a very raw talent. Little high center of gravity, some awkward footwork, hands need some work, and this is from 2.5 years ago. So some of that, like Herb Hand, who was the offensive line coach at Texas, I guarantee worked through a good chunk of that because he is a very good offensive line coach. One who was on the short list of people I wish we'd have got. I think we worked out pretty well with Mike Schmidt, so I'm not mad there. But there's some things that he's gonna have to work through. At the same time, he's huge. He has Power 5 experience. He's huge, and he seemed like he's raw enough that I think he should be teachable. And Schmidt has a history of turning people into very solid linemen, so I think it's a really good fit.
My favorite thing out of all of this, so we brought this up when Syracuse was first targeting Tyler a couple of months ago, is that, again, this is, like Steve said, his fourth school in his collegiate career. So he's like a senior or a graduate student at this point, and he has 3 years of eligibility left.
Yep. So at the same time, when he's coming in, everybody's like, oh, let's slot him in for, it's like, let's see where he slots in there. He played tackle at Iowa Western. He played guard for Texas. So I would assume one of the two is where he's going to slot in because there's only so many options of places he can try and play. However, if you want to see the field more readily, you're probably looking at him trying to push tackle because you have Chris Blake. Still can't remember how to actually pronounce that. I looked it up twice. I'm sorry, Chris. And Dakota Davis at left guard. So you would think that right tackle would be where he would try and compete. At right tackle, you currently have Aaron Service, a 60-year tackle center.
Revolving door.
Something. And then Anthony Red behind him, who's coming off a season-ending injury, who shows a lot of promise. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him there. And then you have also Bradford, who transferred in from Iowa Central Community College, Jacob Bradford, who could be in the mix there as well. There's definitely going to be a shuffle. You have three positions that are kind of penned in Matthew Bergeron at left tackle, and then the two guard spots with Davis and Chris. And then center with Carlos Vettorello, who knows what's going to happen there, and at right tackle, who knows what's going to happen there. So
you hit on, in that description, you hit on what I think is the most important part, is that for the last 2 years, we have seen the Syracuse offensive line become literally the Walking Dead, where Aaron Service was playing so that way there was an adequate number of eligible players who could allow Syracuse to compete in a game. It seems like the Dino Babers and the coaching staff have made a concerted effort to say we are going to bring in some players who have some experience, but they're still raw enough that we can get them. They have enough, to what Christian said, they have enough years of eligibility that they do not need to play right now for us to recruit and pitch them. But should things go sideways again, like they have for the last 2 years, we're not starting a true freshman, or we're not starting a sophomore who has not played in D1 action and is still
or a
fullback. Yeah, I was going to say, or a fullback. And to your
Right.
point, Steve, you said that Willie Tyler is probably only competing for guards and tackle spots. As Chris Elmore pointed out, there is no position that can limit you on the football field.
True. Although I will, contrary to what some of our commenters on the site will say, there's a big difference between playing any other position on the line and playing center. As someone who literally was the utility man and played guard, tackle, center, and tight end, there's a big difference between playing center and playing any other position. So,
yeah, I think the offensive line is going to be, again, Steve, to make your life so fun in the spring. Whenever Syracuse football allows us to talk about spring, that'll be conversation for next week, because if we don't have any spring news by next week, we will riot. I think the biggest area of not concern but of interest is the offensive line, because there's just a lot of pieces that we really don't know how they're going to slot, and we already know that the offensive line is the key to the offensive success, because they need to learn. If the offensive line doesn't work, we already know that Tommy DeVito doesn't work behind a bad offensive line. We have no idea if Garrett Schrader is going to be able to stand himself up. We've already seen Jacoby and Morgan get hurt behind a not great offensive line. Like, that area needs to be improved before any of the other question marks around the team start getting answered. One of those was the wide receiver position, which you, me, Christian, we were just on the site, on Twitter, on the show every week talking about asking for someone to step up. And Ed Hendricks was a name that really seemed like he should have been one of those guys. According to Stephen Bailey, and we reported it this week, there's no transfer portal activity. However, Ed Hendricks, wide receiver, and Devin Clark, safety, are not enrolled in any classes this semester, which is a red flag. It probably means that they're not on campus, and it probably means that if they're not entering the transfer portal, they're going to attempt to go pro and or maybe drop down a level somewhere else. It's not great for Syracuse's depth, because both players saw the field when healthy and were considered pieces of those respective units.
And especially Hendricks, because with Nike Johnson going, we're all expecting Taj Harris to go into the slot, which means that you need someone else to play the opposite outside wide receiver spot for Anthony Keeley. And Hendricks just seemed like the perfect option for right now to slot into that opposite outside receiver spot. In fact, he did when Taj Harris was suspended for a game because of his flipping off of the camera during the Liberty game. But that's going to hurt, because Hendricks had a lot of potential, as Steve has pointed out, and just from like what he's looked like he has the body type of a typical outside wide receiver that the Syracuse offense is still looking for after Tristan Jackson left.
Yeah, the one nice thing is that does open up, I'm trying to look glass half full here. If, for one, who knows what actually happens, Hendricks may actually end up on the team in the fall. It is a big red flag at this point, but, dumber things have happened. But that said, it does kind of, you lose him, you lose Nakeem. It kind of puts guys like former, current defensive back Justin Barron in as the next man up. You've got a couple options.
Damian Alford.
In that size. Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was like, in all honesty, I remember Damian and I couldn't remember his last name, so I was scrolling through the roster trying to find it. But I was like,
just sort by height. That's usually what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's actually, I probably should have done that. Actually, by height, you get Maximilian Mang as a tight end. So
What's his
the
what's his
former
40
Sorcerer
time like?
Supreme that had to. Yeah, the former Sorcerer Supreme who had to give his sling ring up to Christian for this transfer portal news is a giant tight end at 6'7", 250. So he's a string bean. He should be on the basketball team.
100%.
We found.
Actually, no, that's way too heavy to be on the basketball team.
But he's from Germany, so that means we found our European five guy that we need for the basketball team.
Oh man, we haven't
Yeah,
had
there
one
you
of
go.
those. Yeah. Got to replace Marek.
Gotta love it. But yeah, I mean, you can't teach size, so losing Hendricks definitely hurts if he's lost. We do have young options that are talented, but it never is good to lose somebody who's got that body to play outside. So
Yeah.
maybe it is a sign that Luke Benson moves out.
Yeah,
God,
I think
that'd be so great.
But this has been the issue that we talked about all last year, was that the offense was very much based around this vertical passing game, and Taj was the only player that came remotely close to fitting that role in terms of actual production, but he was just not the type for it. And we're going in now to the spring. This is what I think is, outside the offensive line, the most interesting thing. Either the offense needs to change, or they need somebody to step up, and I'm not sure that there's anybody on the roster who's ready to do that from day one. But man, I don't know what this offense looks like if we're trying to run out the Taj at the deep threat position again. Like I just don't know how that offense works, even with a good offensive line.
I honestly think Benson could be that guy. It's just that he never got thrown the damn ball. And we've already.
All right, Keyshawn,
Yeah.
calm down.
I am taking Stuart Scott lessons from the 1995 commercial with Kenny Mayne and Kobe Bryant as well. But I digress. But still, like, Luke Benson would be such that great wide receiver, because remember his first touchdown against Holy Cross where he just blitzed down the field. He would be the perfect outside wide receiver, because he's got the speed to do it as well. And we've already seen from this year that he's not the best tight end blocker, I would say. I mean Hackett was better at that, but even Hackett wasn't great at times. But still, Dino has also said in his press conferences, we need to figure out a way to get Benson the ball more. Well, why not use his speed to your advantage and put him on the outside?
Well, and with Rhino coming back, you have you're not going to need to run Hackett and Benson. Well, not Hackett anymore, but
ironically, who was going to TCU?
The equivalent of Hackett and Benson
earlier.
Right. But we'll go with Mahar and Benson in that fullback role. And how often are we running a fullback and a tight end? And we know Elmore can put his hand on the ground, so he can slide in as that blocking tight end anyways. I think it would make more sense to shift, guys like Mahar and guys like Benson out to that, if not all the way out, put him in some sort of receiving role, whether it's, one of the slot guys in a quads formation or something weird that you need to utilize some of these guys that can catch the ball in ways that make sense.
Syracuse's next incoming tight end, Landon Morris, he was ranked at the beginning of the 2020 high school season as Sports Illustrated's number 9 hybrid tight end in high school.
Yep.
And hybrid tight end means more receiving focused. So you've got options there who can catch the ball.
Yeah.
Now put them to damn use.
Yeah.
Yep. So to answer your question, Andy, why not both?
Porque no las?
Yeah.
Let's change the offense up.
Porque no las dos?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really glad that we were able to get some good X's and O's conversation in this. There was one other piece. There was a Friday news dump by the Syracuse Orange. Dion Maddox, name that I've never heard before, but I know Steve has heard of because Steve knows all these guys. He is going to be.
Well, that was my wheelhouse of watching OG Syracuse football.
Yeah,
so.
He is the new director of high school relations. So that was a position that Syracuse lost this offseason. I forget where I think it was part of the Florida State?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bartow.
Ryan
Bartow went to Florida State. It was somebody else who went to Vandy with that exodus of coaching.
Lepak went to Vandy
Lustig.
with
Lustig,
Lustig.
yeah. So it was a role Syracuse needed. It's a big recruiting role. Basically, Maddox is the guy that works with a lot of high schools, coaches, get players to camps, get players in front of coaches, get scouting reports, get tape, all those things that are integral to recruiting. Nice to see Dino and the rest of the staff bring in another former Orange person. I think that this is a new effort by the Orange to kind of fill a lot of these roles with former players. It's something that a lot of other programs do pretty consistently, and something that I'm not. It's good to see Syracuse kind of jump on that train. But I did want to throw that out there because I know that there's a lot of people out there who know who Dion Maddox is, and if you start seeing him around Manly, you see him at games. That's why.
Yep, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and Florida ties, so you can't go wrong with Florida ties.
Always a big thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we went through an hour and we talked about football for like a solid 25 to 40% of it, which makes me happy because, next week is going to be what the hell's going on with spring practice. Let us in to watch some of these guys, and if not, we're gonna make stuff up because it's spring football season.
Or at least release a spring practice guide like you've done every other season, Syracuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into all this next week because I feel like if it doesn't happen this week, it's not happening, and there's our green light to just, what the heck are you doing? And hopefully, basketball transfer news has calmed down. And because I've said that, there's going to be 10 new things that happen this week, and Christian's going to be busier than ever.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yep, 100%.
My apologies. But that's our show for this week. Thank you again to Christian, to Steve, for all of you who tuned in and listened. Kevin, we are not doing WrestleMania predictions because I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So, everybody, like, subscribe, hit that little logo that shows up down in the bottom right of your screen. I think I need to have our resident Andy. I was going to try and come up with some fancy title, but
don't do that.
Come up with a new with something that actually says subscribe on it instead of it's just a watermark for the program. But click on that, ding the bell, do the whole 9 yards because we're on YouTube. That's all I got.
Go Orange?
Question mark.
I'd say go Orange.
Go Orange.
Go Orange.